Welcome back, you're watching 9 News. Moving on to sports news. New Zealand says goodbye to Sonny Bill Williams, yet again, but for how long? The chief midfield back has announced his return to NRL, honouring a handshake agreement to an unnamed rugby league team.
This is not the first time the 17-test All Black has jumped ship. He left the Canterbury Bulldogs in 2008 mid-season to play rugby union with French club Toulon. Williams will head to the Japanese rugby club Panasonic Wild Knights for 12 games. The short-term contract is worth about $1.5 million. Best known for his reverse flick passes and round-the-corner pops, Williams will now leave his All Black midfield position wide open.
Maybe it's just not meant to be. As Roger Federer wins his 7th Wimbledon Grand Slam title, Andy Murray's wins over the British public. Murray's speech mirrored the drama of the 3-hour and 24 minutes final on Monday.
Playing in front of a full house on home soil and taking the first set 6-4 did not prove to be enough to unravel the Swiss. Federer went on to recapture his #1 ranking with a final score of 7-5, 6-3, 6-4. 20 million tuned in to watch Murray become too emotional to speak during the awards ceremony. According to the Scotsman, he was happy with his performance, saying it was the best he had played in a Grand Slam final, and eventually choking through tears that he's getting closer. Every point was greeted by an explosion of cheers and cries for the 25-year-old, as Murray is the first Briton to reach the final for 74 years.
The latest hype surrounding the London Olympics takes a new turn. With just a little bit more than 2 weeks to go before the July 27 kick-off date, there's a new twist to what goes on behind all the hard work and country patriotism.
According to an anonymous author, a new book, The Secret Olympics, exposes all the sex, booze and drug secrets that goes on at the Olympic villages. Quoting, organisers supplied 70,000 condoms at the 2000 Summer Olympics in Sydney, running out in 1 week. While alcohol and drugs are banned at Olympic villages, and officials do not permit such behaviour, they do not condemn it either. Whichever country hosts the Games always struggle to keep liquor and condoms in ready supply. Olympic villages are accommodation centres built for the Games, housing participating athletes. They are prefab communities divided into smaller divisions by nation, and only athletes, trainers, and officials are allowed within the premises. The United States area for London has a 24-hour McDonald's and a Heineken house. Everything is free, including the unlimited supply of condoms.
The Black Caps set to take on Thursday's one-day international against the West Indies without Brendan McCullum. McCullum is among the 5 Black Caps players due to arrive in St Kitts about 20 hours before the scheduled start match at Warner Stadium. But according to New Zealand coach Wright, the schedule is too tight.
The cricket team have been short of runs during the 2020 and ODI losses to the West Indies, but not enough to risk a jet-lagged McCullum for the match, which starts at 1:20 a.m. New Zealand time on Thursday. Wright says that McCullum will definitely play in the last 2 games on July 15 and 17. The rest of the Test players, Daniel Vettori, Chris Martin, Kruger van Wyk and Neil Wagner, will be in St Kitts to familiarise ahead of decamping to Antigua to prepare for a 3-day warm-up match before the first Test. Whoever plays on Thursday will have to dismiss Chris Gale, who smashed 63 not out and 125 in the previous 2 one-dayers.
Now moving on to our Finance Weekly. New Zealand's commodity prices fell to 4.2% to a 21-month low in May, as rises in the price of apples and kiwi fruits failed to offset declines in the price of wool and dairy products. Last month, the commodity prices fell again to its lowest level, led by petrol and the dairy products, as the Europe debt crisis weighs on global prices. Today, with our TV9 Finance Weekly host Brenda Lee with Managing Director in Bancorp Wealth Management, Craig Brownie, to share the story with us.
Fonterra, the world's largest exporter of dairy product, has cut its milk price in May and flagged the prospect of lower payment in 2013. And dairy prices have since then fallen, to their lowest level in 33 months. What are your views on this?
Well, I guess it's again it's a supply and demand issue.
Yes.
Fonterra has an auction system now, so people bid the price. It doesn't set it; it treats it like a floating currency. And of course, the way that the Fonterra system works pretty much is Fonterra will take all the milk the farmers can produce, and then it's Fonterra's job to go and sell that around the world. When demand is really high, then the prices go up. So Fonterra's job is to try and manage that price up as much as it can, but of course it can't control the economies of Asia and Europe and the US. So it is in a sense a price taker, and at the moment those prices have softened.
Yeah. So do you think if the price in New Zealand dropped down, I mean the dairy price, would it be the same for the other part of the world?
Yes, normally the commodity price for New Zealand milk coming out of the auctions is pretty much the world price. What we've got to remember here is the prices that come back through the Fonterra quotes domestically, the pay-up prices are New Zealand dollars to farmers. So that's not only affected by the commodity price, but also the currency as well.
Okay, so how are we doing for the currency so far?
Well, the commodity that is sold in US dollars, and of course we translate back to New Zealand. So at the moment we have a high New Zealand dollar against the US from a traditional or long-term average. As such, that means the farmers get less Kiwi dollars back again, or it's harder for us to compete because we have a higher currency. A low dollar is good for exporters, and a high dollar is good for importers. So at the moment, if our dollar drops but the commodity price stays high, that instantly means more money in farmers' pockets, subject to, of course, Fonterra has a long-term hedging strategy, so they manage currency and commodity price as much as they can to try and stop the volatility, really.
For the full disclosure, make sure you're watching Finance Weekly on Thursday morning, 8 o'clock. Now moving on to our Happy Diner, introducing and reviewing your favourite restaurants in Auckland every day.
Shredded pork with sweet bean sauce is an iconic dish of Beijing. The Jing sauce is known as the sweet bean sauce. Its origin is dated back to Qing Dynasty. The Manchu people liked eating noodles in ceremonies, but when there was too much leftovers, the noodles were fermented and turned into a sweet bean sauce. It may look average, but when the sweet pork is rolled up in a thin pancake with a crispy shredded spring onion.
Speaking of our sweet bean sauce, we often come to the conclusion that it's very rich and heavy flavored, but I have to say that this sauce is great with the pork. It's not too strong, so it doesn't cover the flavor of the pork. And
the chef uses top quality pork tenderloin and Beijing's yellow soybean sauce and the tianmian jiang as the main ingredient for the dish. Now let's take a look in the kitchen. The shredded pork is first deep fried, then drained to remove oil. The chef then stirs the tianmian jiang with wine, tossing back the pork and stir fries them together before adding stock, soy sauce and sesame oil, slowly simmered until the sauce thickens while the meat absorbs the sauce.
We use the pork tenderloin to make this dish. It's an eye fillet of pork. Pork and beef in New Zealand is much tender than China's. They are big in sizes, yet the meat is still tender. We don't use any food additives in our cooking.
Now bringing you the weather forecast of the day. Thank you for watching today's 9 News. See you tomorrow.